Hello everybody! Thank you for joining us today for the second showing of our first cybersecurity webinar in this new series. If you already joined us last month, this is going to be the same webinar backed by popular demand, but we are going to have a brand new webinar for you on passwords at the end of the month, so you can also check that out. For those of you who don't know, my name is Ben. I'm an IT consultant here at Clearbridge, and I'm going to be your host today. First off, a little bit about me. I've been really big into cybersecurity for a while now. First off, just as an enthusiast when I started my bachelor's in computer information systems, and then professionally when I got my first job in IT support back in 2016. Now, in this webinar, what we're going to be covering is a couple basic topics. First off, what is cybersecurity? Why is it important? And who is responsible for it? This webinar is going to be a brief introduction to the topic. We're not going to go too technical for this session. So let's get started. You've probably heard a lot about cybersecurity in recent years, but people rarely take the time to define it. At its simplest, cybersecurity is the protection of all your data and information systems from attacks. Cyber attacks can be to disrupt, destroy, or steal. Cybersecurity, like real physical security, isn't a single one-size-fits-all solution, but more of a series of best practices to implement and be maintained. Now, I mentioned data before, but what did I mean when I said your data? When we talk about data, we're often meaning personal info, like your phone number, email address, and personal details. But we also want to mention corporate info, like your company's standard operating procedures or contracts, policies, and even their customer data. It's important to understand what is considered data to better understand what you must protect. Because cyber criminals, they want to steal your data, mostly for making money off it via one of a couple methods. Either directly by actions such as stealing bank info or ransoming control of your systems, or indirectly by selling off your information to competitors, copying your business models, or poaching your customers, which is a very common one. One other thing I'd like to point out at this point is sometimes data that by itself doesn't seem that valuable can be used to gain access to other more valuable data. This is a concept known as social engineering, which we will be discussing more in some future content. Okay, so let's talk about some responsibility of cybersecurity. If I had to ask you who's responsible for cybersecurity at your company, who would you answer? If you answered your management or IT department, you're not wrong, but you did miss out on one more important person, you. You're just as responsible for it. In fact, everyone in your organization is. Why is that? That's because the weakest link in any system is the human element. The biggest risk to our information systems are our own misunderstanding and lack of knowledge. Have you ever opened an email because the subject line looked interesting, but you didn't know the sender? Or have you reused a password for multiple accounts because you couldn't think of a new one? Ever written your password down on a sticky note and stuck it to your monitor? These are human vulnerabilities, not system vulnerabilities, and they're a huge target for any cyber criminal. In fact, according to Microsoft, a vast majority of data breaches involve weak, default, or stolen passwords. But this isn't something to be ashamed of. It's true everywhere, from your standard mom and pop shops to the big tech giants. For example, the 2019 hack of the company SolarWinds was blamed, in part, on an internal server's password being set as SolarWinds123. For those of you that don't know, SolarWinds is an IT infrastructure company responsible for over 33,000 customers. And one of those customers is in fact the US government. So here's two things you can do today to reduce your risk. Number one, make a stronger password. You probably already know if your password is on the weak side. And I'm talking about you with the winter 2022, or you with the password with the A as an @ symbol. Those aren't very strong passwords. Number two, enable multi-factor authentication, or MFA. MFA is a security method that all the large tech companies, from Google to Amazon to Apple, are pushing because it can help prevent up to 99.9% of cyber attacks. Now, we're not going to go too in-depth on MFA or passwords today, but we are going to be putting out some articles for you guys to read, and we'll be sending those out in a later email. So here's, first off, a couple key takeaways that we've covered. you know that your data is important and that the bad actors out there want to grab it to make their own money off of you and at your expense. You know you are responsible for cybersecurity, and you know that you can improve your own cybersecurity today just by improving your passwords and enabling MFA. These are just a few of many small things you can do that will have a big impact on your cybersecurity. And we're dedicating this entire year to demystifying those cybersecurity concepts. To do this, we're focusing all of our content we're putting out on topics that directly relate to it, such as how to make better passwords, common types of cyber attacks and how to recognize them, and just what is a computer virus. Keep an eye on your inbox for the next invite. In the meantime, follow us on social media. We're clearbridge.ca on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.